I think that Vivarium mainly plays into our fears about our place in said society. So you have this main. I really think that what this movie is about, it's about how like sometimes you'll have a young couple, they'll get married very young because they're told that they're supposed to get married. They'll move in together because they're told that they're supposed to live together. And then they'll end up like having a kid because like they're told like, oh, you're supposed to settle down and have a kid. And then as time goes on, they start to realize that they want different things in life. And because of the fact that they got married so young, they had a kid so young, they moved in together so young and so early, they start to resent each other. They start to resent the life that they have together. They start to resent the child. And I think that's what this movie is about, like beneath the surface, beneath like, you know, the ostensive, like, you know, they're imprisoned by like aliens or interdimensional beings. I think those are the main fears that those are the main fears that this movie is playing on.
Yeah, I think it plays on the fear of becoming repetitive and boring, like all hopes and dreams getting lost because of a few wrong decisions, or like being tricked into a situation that you end up getting stuck in.
Mm-hmm. Or even like the HelloFresh deliveries, as I call them. Like, it's just like, oh, you eat the same boring food every week, the same boring food. And like, I've done the HelloFresh thing and it's fun for a little bit, but then eventually you realize that it's like so repetitive. You're eating the same flavors over and over again that it's just boring. And I very much like when they got the box of like the food that was all prepackaged, I very much got like that sense. Like this is like the suburbia that a lot of people I think that are our age are like a little bit afraid of, right? We don't want this to be us because we've like seen our parents live this life, and it's like for a lot of us it wasn't fun watching our parents live this life. So it's like we very much like reject this idea, and I think this movie is definitely playing on those fears of like settling down and becoming boring and like having this brewing resentment against your own family.
And this movie came out in 2020. So that's around the time where a lot of people, whether they liked it or not, were forced to live this life inside their house, getting deliveries,
absolutely
living a life of solitude.
Mm-hmm. With just you and your family. I wonder how many families watched this movie during 2020, and then like we're like looking at each other thinking, oh, this is kind of us a little bit. I'm sure no one's got a kid this annoying. No one's got a kid this annoying. And honestly, I would have killed this kid. It's not a kid. It's not a kid. I don't know what this thing is, but this thing, I would not have been like being nice to it. I don't care. Yeah.
So before we talk about the kid, what is Yonder, or the Vivarium that they're in? Where are they?
I think it is exactly what the name suggests. It's a vivarium. It's like a little nursery that they built. A vivarium isn't a nursery. Like a vivarium is like it's like a fake environment that you put an animal in, like a snake or like a reptile or something. You can watch them. But it's like a vivarium / nursery. Now, if we pay attention to the first scene in the movie, what we're watching is the cuckoo bird kicking the other baby birds out, and then the cuckoo gets fed by the mom. And what was really interesting about the clip that they showed us is that by the time the cuckoo bird is even like as time goes on, by the end of it, the mom is like inside of the cuckoo's mouth. That's how big the cuckoo is compared to the mom. Like she's inside of its mouth. So the vivarium is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fake environment that's also a nursery for the quote unquote cuckoo, this little boy. So these beings, whatever they are, in order to reproduce or in order to like raise their children, their offspring properly, they need them to be raised by other organisms. So they've put these two people here to raise their cuckoo. So I don't know exactly like what the structure of the vivarium is or how it functions. It appears to be like interdimensional or something.
Yeah, I think it's like how I imagine it is like a little bubble of a parallel universe, and it's like sitting on Earth's surface. And so when you drive in, you can drive into it. But once you're inside, the laws of reality function a little bit differently, so you can't quite escape.
Yeah, and I think that something else that's suggestive that might be true is like when the boy, the creature or whatever, lifts the concrete and then you see all of these like bending walls and weird doors. It looks like an MC Usher painting. This is some dimension shifting technology that's happening here. It was really, really unsettling and eerie.
Yeah, so that the character Gemma crawls through a portal trying to follow the kid. She goes into another parallel bubble where they're keeping other subjects, right? And she can't comprehend what she's experiencing. It's like she isn't built to exist in that loop. She's like a foreign body in flesh, and she's eventually pushed back to where she belongs. So I feel like there's these different realities.
It recalibrates itself.
Yeah. Like there's like different realities that are vibrating on slightly different frequencies, but they're all stacked up together. So I bet yonder, it's probably densely populated, but no one can really communicate, which kind of mirrors how some people don't really interact with their neighbors and can feel isolated in communities like this. And we've talked about this driving through neighborhoods where all the houses are on top of each other. They all look the same. It doesn't really foster a community.
And it feels fake.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about before, like how like American neighborhoods are just like fake versions of European villages. Whereas like Europe, you have like real villages, but ours, we just have like these fake villages, and then everything else is like really far away from the village. Like you can't walk to the market from an American neighborhood generally speaking.
Do you know what ghost estates are?
Not exactly. Explain them.
Yeah, so the director of this movie, he's Irish. This is an Irish film. And in Ireland, there was an economic boom in the mid-90s to late 2000s, and they built a massive surplus of housing that mostly ended up abandoned, unoccupied, or unfinished due to a recession. So in Ireland, there's all these abandoned neighborhoods that look a lot like the neighborhood in this film, and that's what inspired the filmmakers to make this movie, were these ghost estates. Type it into Google, look up ghost estates. It brings up some creepy imagery.
There are a few things that are creepier than like an abandoned town or an abandoned neighborhood. It's just something about like something that should be full of people being empty. That's just so eerie. Like I said, like looking at if the beginning of the movie, they walk into the real estate agent and they see the models of the houses, right? Like instantly I would have been like, can I just get a picture of the neighborhood? I would have looked it up on Google or something and been like, no, I wouldn't have even followed them back just based on the look of the houses. But yeah, to each his own. They wanted, I don't know, they to each his own.
So what do you think these aliens are?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question because they're not necessarily aliens, but I guess if they're like anything non-human, then they're technically alien to us, like even if they're like interdimensional beings. But one thing that I'm pretty sure about is that the skin that they're wearing, like this human skin, is not really what they are, right? So we see the little boy kind of like show like the bulbous things on his neck at some point, almost like a frog. And we also see those images in the book that are kind of like describing his physiology, but they're in that weird alien language, so the mom can't really read what it's saying. But I think the reason they wear the human skin is because they're the cuckoo. They have to look like a cute little human child to get the mom to keep feeding them and to keep taking care of them. And they keep wearing the skin when they go out into the human world to like acquire more victims. So it's not totally clear what they are or what they look like, but like also the way like the character crawls at some point is just very, very strange and alien, and it implies like a totally different physiology, a totally different natural physiology to the one that it's presenting. It's not really a bipedal human. It's more of, it's something that crawls on the ground like a weird freakish crab thing.
Well, they seem to have a symbiotic relationship with humans, right? They're raised to mimic humans so that they can fit into their civilization as best they can.
Well, it's more like a parasitic relationship rather than a symbiotic relationship, because a symbiotic one would be more, it'd be influential to, it'd be beneficial to both organisms. Whereas like in this case, it's only beneficial to these alien creatures. Mm-hmm.
I also think that they've been like living in parallel with humans for a long time. Yeah, and
they've had this scheme running for a while.
Yeah, and their traps have evolved with society. So I wonder what yonder looked like back in the 1800s.
If they were around that long.
I don't know. I feel like maybe perhaps they're not aliens at all, and there's just something else that we share the planet with.
And they've just been here parallel with us for this long. That's an interesting idea. One thing that I was thinking about is we see the real estate agent, and then we see like the little boy that grows up to be the new real estate agent. But in these parallel stacks, right? I wonder if there are different parents that are raising different aliens that are going to grow up and become different members of society, like doctors, policemen, politicians. I don't know, the person serving your dinner at the restaurant, like anybody, you know what I mean? Like we see like a very specific example, and it seems like they only live for a short amount of time. So I wonder if there's like different ones that live longer, that have different goals and different tasks. So that'd be interesting to know. Like I'd do a Vivarium sequel. We could do a Vivarium sequel.
So I kind of have a half-baked theory about this movie. You'll have to let me know. You have to let me know what you think of it. So we already established that Vivarium is an Irish movie. We talked about the reference to ghost estates. The aliens in this movie, they kind of behave a little bit like the Irish definition of fairies. Like in Irish folklore, the Tuatha were the original inhabitants of Ireland, right? Fairies are a supernatural race. They operate outside our perception of time and space. They're not friendly winged creatures. They're actually mischievous and vain and spiteful. They replace children, and people get lost in the forest and go missing all the time, and they blame the fairies.
Well, you know, if they are the Irish the fairies, it supports your theory of this being a parallel race of beings to humans. You know why? Because when according to Irish pseudo-history, Irish mythology, you had the She, like you said, the Tuatha De Danann, that inhabited Ireland. And then when men came over from Iberia, what happened is there was a split. There was a separation between the other world, the world of the She, and the world of man. And these two worlds sat parallel on top of each other. So like all of the fairy tales and stories that you hear about like people that wander into the woods and wander slightly off the path, they're wandering into the other world. They're stepping from the path, the realm of men, and into the other realm, the realm of the She. So that's kind of what's happened to our two characters here. While traveling along a journey, they crossed over into the realm of the She and were trapped. And also there's a specific name for the baby stealers in their mythology. They're called changelings. It's a really, 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 really creepy concept of these fairies, these creatures that'll steal a human child in the dead of night when no one is watching and replace it with a child of their own. Exactly like the cuckoo. So I feel like that's not a half-baked theory. That's actually like right on the nose.
So you're saying I might be right.
I think you might be right. And it fits right in with your idea of like the parallel existence. So yeah, I don't think it's half-baked at all. I think it's great.
What do you think that boy is watching on the TV? That creepy black and white.
I wondered about that. Okay, so here's my take on that. It's something that aids in his mental development, and it could also be like transmitting information. You know what I mean? It's like, why do they tell you to put on educational television for kids? Because it aids in their mental development, and this is the alien way of aiding in his mental development. I don't know if it's directly giving him information, because he doesn't seem to become like knowing about the situation, informed about it more until like after he goes off to school or wherever he's going underneath the pavement. That's the point where he starts to act as if he like knows more than everybody else. So I think it's a tool to aid in his development, if I had to guess.
I noticed the patterns on TV, they kind of look like a map of a housing development.
What?
Yeah, well, like housing developers, they'll take a plot of land and they'll use fractal patterns to fit as many houses as they can in one area. And so if you watch the TV, it looks like you can see cul-de-sacs and streets. It looks like it's a housing development.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think the TV reflects the nature of the boy. It's black and white. The boy wears black and white. And on an emotional level, he sees things as black and white.
Oh, I get it. Like he doesn't like really like see any nuance. It's like, I want my food and I'm screaming when I don't got it. And when I get it, it's here. So yeah, I get that as well. Those are really interesting observations.
So in the real world, people let their kids sit in front of the TV watching strange shit all day without really understanding what it is they're watching. And I think this can alienate parents from their children, because what media you digest at a young age becomes a big part of who you are.
I think that's a great point, and I just have to say that my parents had no idea what I was watching on TV growing up. And because I grew up in like a weird like Southern Baptist environment, that was maybe for the better, but I totally get what you mean.
I have so many piano students that have brought their phones or iPads and have shown me some just the craziest, dumbest, weirdest stuff that they find on YouTube. I'm like, what the hell is this? Why are you even watching this? What are you learning from this?
And more importantly, what do your parents have to say about this? But the answer is usually they have no idea. They don't know. They're not monitoring it.
It keeps their kid docile.
It keeps them busy. I think they were just kind of letting him watch it and not caring because like at least he wasn't screaming with his bizarre, insane, alien, high-pitched tones while he was watching the black and white stuff. Like here's a question though about like something that happens in the movie. Why does the husband Tom start to get sick? And that's something that I have been pondering on.
I mean, they're in a totally fake environment.
Mm-hmm.
The clouds are fake.
Yes.
The sun is fake.
Mm-hmm.
The grass is fake. The dirt seems to be made out of weird chemicals. It's a place that is completely devoid of nature. Mm-hmm. And humanity seems to be moving further and further away from nature. So what happens when we cut ourselves off from anything natural? Mm-hmm. I think anyone would get sick.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a more pointed reason that he's getting sick. I think that's a part of the whole plan. You know what I mean? Because, okay, if we go back to like, are comparing this movie if we go back to talking about societal fears and what this movie represents as far as like our own societal fears about our place in society, right? So the dad is digging a hole in the front yard and he leaves every day in the morning to go out to the front yard and keep digging, working this pointless job that he like, it's meaningless. Ultimately, he's working a meaningless, pointless job and leaving the wife at home to take care of the kid. So the metaphor is very, very, very on the nose. If I do recall in the movie, as he's digging through the dirt, he's like coughing. So I feel like it's a combination of the food, because they mention that that the food tastes weird. The food makes them feel a little bit weird.
Everything there's flavorless.
Yeah.
So the air has no smell. There's no wind.
So I feel like maybe there's something about the food that's chemically, it's rearranging their brains to make them act in a certain way. Like the mom, Gemma, right?
Yeah.
Gets very protective over the boy at a certain point, while the dad gets increasingly distant. And I don't know if that's just because of the tumultuous situation that they're in, or if it has something to do with what they're eating. Okay, back to why he dies. I think the chemicals in the dirt make him sicker. Because we start to see like him kicking up, like yellow stuff is coming out. It's like, what is this? So I think that the implication there is that the chemicals in the dirt made him sick. But then the big crazy thing that happens is when we get to the bottom of it and he finds the body. That's the body of the previous dad, of the previous alien that was raised at number 9. The house number that they're at, which I really think is the dimension number. It's that they're at dimension number 9 of like this stacked layer of vivarium. But yeah, when he uncovers that body, the implication to that is that your actions have been outside of your control this entire time. You've been thinking you've been doing something unique, something that you thought of, but really the last person dug too. And guess what? They're down here now. And then what happens to him at the end of the movie? He's down there too. So I think that's just part of it. Or for whatever, I think the aliens or whatever they are know that like they're operating based off of like established human, gender roles that we've established in our society. And I guess they're operating based on the idea that like the man needs to feel like he can do something. He needs to feel like he can accomplish something, even if it's ultimately pointless, even if he's digging a hole in the front yard to nowhere, digging his own grave, even if he's literally digging his own grave.
Well, they're told that if they raise the child, they'll be released. So do you think anything would have happened differently if they paid more attention to the child and raised it better?
No, because it's a cuckoo. I think that if we follow the metaphor, then ostensibly that should be true. But I think the metaphor only goes so far because like in reality in this film, it is a cuckoo. It's not their child. It's an alien. It's something that's wearing human skin and pretending to be. I think they were always doomed. I don't think that the aliens would have ever let them go. I don't think anybody gets let go from this. I think it's a lie. I don't think there is any release coming for them. And I think it would have went more or less the same way. I do. Because at the end of the movie, what does the creature say to the woman? He says, "You're a mother, and now you're going to do what moms do, die." Right? That was always the plan. It was always the plan. So that's what we got for Vivarium, one of the creepiest sci-fi movies that has come out in the last couple of years. It's absolutely brilliant. I think that everyone should give it a try, should give it a watch. Definitely up there high on my list. Be sure to subscribe to Cosmic Chronicles on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes every other Friday. Thanks for listening.